Welcome, Michelle, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, Kerry. It's an honour to be here, and thank you for inviting me. Welcome. I'd like to start with, first, my journey. I was happily married, an entrepreneur, a visionary with my husband. We have 2 beautiful daughters, now in their early 30s, incredibly successful. And then in 2006, I started divorce proceedings. I opened my eyes to our British justice system. From the first day I ever walked into those courts, I realised it was like a Shakespearean play. Actors, judges sitting on benches with white wigs and black robes. Is it a justice system or is it a ritual? I then realised from that first hearing that justice was not to be had. I then started investigating, and I have been doing so for the last nearly 19 years. What I have discovered over those years is not only are the family courts not fit for purpose, nor are the insolvency courts. The family courts are trafficking our children. 8 million children are being trafficked per year worldwide through our justice system with the Crown and controlled, I believe, by Rothschilds. And the insolvency courts, insolvency is a license to steal. There's no real law with insolvency. It's a bunch of men in suits, and sometimes ladies, calling themselves accountants where there is no auditing being done. I spoke in Parliament a few months ago, and I said, who is auditing the auditors? I found out then through a superb political mainstream journalist who then started investigating. The head auditor of our country, guess what, is not an auditor. So all of our money, whether every crime against humanity, whether it's tax, child trafficking, asset stripping through the court system, with the Crown Corporation and controlled by the Rothschilds as one of the main 13 central banking bloodline families, which is controlling our world, or used to, should I say. Now, the beauty is, with the superb people I've had the pleasure to work with over these 19 years, who've been either trafficked or asset stripped, we've all worked together and researched, and we found so much out. And, you know, what I did realise is we have this. We have justice must be seen to be done. It is the constitutional duty of the Crown in Parliament to secure the rule of law with justice in the mercy as the people's birthright. We seek truth, justice, liberty, and freedom of expression. It is our sovereign birthright under the rules of our laws. The power is with we, the people. It is not with the governments, and it is not with the court system, it is with us. We have a 1688 Declaration with Bill of Rights. We have the Coronation Oath, and we have the Constitution. Now, that 1688 Declaration with the Bill of Rights, I'm not sure if people are aware, it has not been breached, and it can't be. It can't be repealed, but they are in breach of that. So that gives us the right to actually become a constitutional republic. And it doesn't just work in our country, it works in most dominions across the world. For we the people to take back control of governments and courts. Where we are now, the court system is rigged, as the great Donald Trump has said. The mainstream media, I think, was fake news, but I think a lot of the very good journalists now realise they need to be on board with us. So I think there's a lot of disruption within the mainstream media now, and the journalists are actually working more on our side, which is very positive, I believe. I'm working with some great journalists now in the mainstream as well as alternative, and I make it very clear. Look at this website. If we could please look at the petition pages. Thank you, Bella. You can see I put the 10 Commandments, very basic moral principles that we should all follow in our lives, whether you believe in God or not. You know, that's civilization for us all to treat each other properly. We've got also, if you scroll along, we've got the Slavery Act, and we've got here, you can see fraudulent court documents. So I'm working with an ex-Ministry of Defence police officer. So over our 19 years of investigation, we've found out that the majority of the court documents, whether it's the child trafficking or the asset stripping, are fraudulent. So we thought we'd educate everyone and put on there everything to look for regarding court documents. And the majority of people that look at these bullet points find out that their court documents are fraudulent. Sorry, did you have a question?
Sorry, are you the same person looking at the RBS NatWest?
I'm working with people that are working with them, yes. And they're now actually going around the country repossessing the homes for the general public as well. There's a lot of very good people doing very good work. So that gives you an idea. And then we've got the family court frauds petition within this petition page, and also we've got the insolvency court petitions. Now what we've done, this is, as Kerry said, it's more than a petition, because what we've asked for is 60 words of what happened to the individual, put the court order number so we know it's authentic, and then you name the judge and the law firm. Now, if we start doing that across our country and across the world, you'll start seeing it's the same judges, the same law firms, the same accountancy firms, same social service people. And this is how we find the network of the individuals that are not doing their job properly. It's the same as the police. The police are not allowed to police. Well, we need a police force. So what I've actually decided to do, I've had a very good accountant come to me, and he said, let's set up a charity. So from the website, we're going to have this as a link to educate people, and we're setting up Make Earth Great Again Justice. So what I've done with everyone across the country at the moment, I'm saying to them, whether it's the child trafficking, the asset stripping, let's get a petition, let's get a class action going on each of the frauds and crimes against humanity. So we can then, with some very heavyweight lawyers that I'm working with who are on side with us, on the side of greater good, can put those class actions in, wake up the general public, and, you know, by doing RICO actions and all sorts of things, and suing the individuals for damages for what they've done to the individual families. Now, I think this is a fantastic thing to do. It will bring the justice system back. Then we bring back the Constitution and the rule of law. Because when we show it's systemic and the ownership has to be with we the people, this will turn around very quickly. It will stop the racketeering that's going on within our court system. And the bad actors, the bad judges, the bad law firms, accountancy firms, etc., will have to be removed. And the good ones that are on side with us, you know, they'll be the ones that will benefit. And that's how I think we're going to improve our economy very quickly. So I'm in the process of doing that. It's a lot of work. My phones are hacked. I'm probably under heavy surveillance, I would imagine. But, you know, I don't do fear. I believe in God. And God wins, and we will win this. And we do have godly principles with our constitution to be able to do this.
May I interrupt for a moment? I'm very sorry.
Yes.
So what you're talking about are solutions. But
Yes.
no one knows who you are, I mean, unless they saw my video.
Okay.
Or
So
what
shall I now?
You need to go back to your story.
Okay, first. Okay, right. So going back to in 2006, I filed for divorce. You know, I was happily married for 20. Yeah. For 20 years. It's hard actually to relive what I went through, because they did take me to hell and back. And, you know, I'm working with military guys that have been through the family courts, and they've said it's more traumatizing going through a family court than fighting on a front line. Well, what they did to me, because I was a big target, because I'm quite strategic, I won all my applications in their rig system, so they attacked me harder. So what I did when I realised from that first day that the system was rigged, I actually used the mainstream media to shine a spotlight on the secret family courts. But what was interesting, the judges, because they didn't like what I was doing, because they'd never had it before, I was getting orders from the mainstream journalist that they had never had before, that we are going to open up these proceedings in the public's interest. So that's what I did. But what they did, the judges, it's so devious, they only allowed the reporters to report on what the judge wanted them to report on. So they wasn't allowed to report on the evidence. So what they did over the many years of me fighting through the system, branded me a conspiracy theorist, ignored my evidence and ignored the law. And then they was hitting me with some heavyweight people. You know, they came in with, you know, BuzzFeed, which is funded by George Soros. So they did a big documentary hit piece on me, and many others. And, you know, they twist the truth and try and destroy people's lives that are trying to do the right thing. But, you know, for all of that, I've survived it, you know, and it's been very difficult. But going back to it, I'm sorry I'm jumping backwards and forwards. I was winning all the applications. My husband, who was, you know, the lawyers get you in competition with each other, especially if you're a big target. You know, they get you to fight. The more you fight, the more they get. And then my lawyer in 2010, because I was winning all the applications, she said the next thing he's going to do is go bankrupt. So that's the next thing he did. Obviously, it was a fraudulent bankruptcy. In walked Grant Thornton, a Rothschild company. So in 2010, I went to see Mr. David Ingram of Grant Thornton. I said, I'd won all my applications. I had some of the biggest draconian orders in British history, where I'd seize laptops to prove my evidence. So it's irrefutable how much had been stolen, what we was actually worth legitimately. So Mr. Ingram said, well, what we do, we don't look at debts, we look at the creditors. Well, there are no creditors, because there are no debts. But that's how they asset strip a family's estate. They pretend there's debts, and then they rack up fees and steal the whole lot. And it's very interesting, because I'm working with a whistleblower chartered accountant. And what's very interesting, a lot of these big accountancy firms are all interlinked, obviously, with the banks. So Lloyds Bank, I had one of the accountancy firms called a FRP through a company called Shendish. That's Lloyds Bank. So they use an SPV, a vehicle in between, so they think they're hiding their true identity. So it's shadow companies working within shadow companies, like the shadow judicial system, and the same as the shadow governments. So they're all working together regarding these major frauds. What else can I speak about with this?
Tell them the actual story of what happened, like how you got in the position to enter the courts.
Well, I went through a divorce.
Well, not me, tell them.
No, I did say that. I said I went through a major divorce.
Okay, but a little more about that. It's quite extraordinary. You know, you really need to be more hard-hitting about what happened.
In which sense?
Details.
Why were they out to get you so much?
Because we were a major target. You see, what they do, they send in, if there's a lot of money involved, they send in
How much is a lot? Million? 500?
And was this your husband's money?
billions.
Billions.
Yeah. And not just my husband's money. I helped create it over a 20-year marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. I helped finance it and help create it. But I trusted my husband with the money.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So what they do when they're hitting a hard target where there's a lot of money involved, they quite often send in a honey trap. So they sent in a honey trap to my husband in 2006. He was heavily sedated on drugs and signed away our rights with a power of attorney. Sorry, Carrie, now I'm going into the story. So what happened, this particular lawyer, a Mr. Stephen David Jones of Gyra House Capital, we might as well name him, he then fought me in the litigation with my husband, heavily sedated on drugs most of the time, until 2013, where I was almost on my knees, but still fighting in the family court, still winning all my applications. And then what they did, 2010, when my husband filed for bankruptcy, then I had the final judgment in 2013. They then, within a year, murdered him. They threw him over a balcony. Then a few months later, they then attacked me and bankrupted me. And from the trauma, I'll be frank, you know, I ended up with cancer and I had a big bandage and a black eye. They still made me go into the courts. And I thought, this is really weird, because when I used to go in, I'm very strategic. So they used to go in 20-handed into the family courts. You had HMRC one side, so I'm fighting HMRC, the Crown. The other side, I'm fighting Grant Thornton Rothschilds, and I was still winning. So the day they bankrupted me, I thought, this is really strange. They usually go in 20-handed, but today there's only one of them. I found out the lawyer that was working for Grant Thornton had no right of audience the day they unlawfully bankrupted me. But the beautiful thing is where I am. I investigated, so I found out that most of our court documents are fraudulent. So I believe it was my calling to do this work, and I will help so many other people across our country with the class actions. I'm strategically planning at the moment. I've got families coming to me. It's heartbreaking. It's nobody knows unless you've been through it how hard it is. I've got one gentleman, his daughter was 4. He hasn't seen her. She's now 17. They call them dolls, spelled D-O-L-S. And they take these children sometimes from babies, and that his daughter's 17. She's in a prison-like institution in Ireland, heavily sedated and drugged. Doesn't even really know if it's her, if she's alive. And he's just one of many. I've got another lady, I won't name her, she's a grandmother. Her granddaughter is 2 years of age. They put her daughter in prison. She was being abused. The granddaughter has bruises. She's smothered in bruises, heavily sedated on drugs. And the family lawyers are involved with social services, where they're taking our children. Now this is still going on across our country to this day. There's a lady called Jeanette Archer And she has said, you know, how satanic it is.
To punish you or to make money off children?
Well, I'm going to be really frank. I believe the 2%, this is a satanic cult. You know, it's pure evil. And I thought, shall I speak about who I'm working with on a daily basis and what I'm doing? And I thought, yes, I am, because unless a lot of people won't face the truth, and this is why we're in this mess. This is why it's become, you know, a figure of 8 million children a year, because nobody wants to face the truth. And it's time we face the truth. I'm going to do a fabulous class action. I'm working with military lawyers, and we are going to annihilate them. And the Crown is heavily involved with the Rothschilds. What they're doing to our children. Jeanette Archer, you might want to look her up, is equivalent to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, to what they're doing to our babies and children. And the dolls, it's another thing that I only heard about 3-4 weeks ago, where they're heavily sedating not just babies and children in these institutions, but also the elderly, to asset strip them of their homes. So I believe it's time we've got to face where we are as a human race. But the ownership is with us, with our Constitution. And that's 1688 Bill of Rights, the Declaration. It cannot be repealed. That's our power.
How can they be apprehended if they're all in on it and their entire career, their entire lives are based on all this? How can you, what is your thinking around somehow, who is going to do the arresting and where are they going to be placed? I mean, how is this, in your mind, how do you work through this?
Well, I think strategically, the class actions I'm preparing, one is with the police, because the police are not being allowed to police, because it's the Freemasons at the very top. So if we prepare a class action on each crime against humanity, and I'm including the vaccine fraud, we can then, with the type of people I'm working with, the law firms I'm working with, and it's quite refreshing, actually, who are awake now, and they actually realise if they don't come on side with us, they're in trouble too. So I think we're in a very strong position, and that's very positive. And I'm doing a lot of work to make sure that the Make Earth Great Again charity, which I think must have upset a few people, they're trying to hack, but they won't stop it.
Can I ask you a question, please, in regards to his question? Just because in America we have a lot of powerful people that are taking down districts in, say, Arizona. They're handing them, they've been indicted, but there's a backup plan. So you have like the arrest power behind it. So I'm all with you on it. I mean, everybody here is, and I'm all with you on saving the children. And if
Yes.
brought you to this level, congratulations for being here.
Mhm.
But what I'm asking you, you have a law firm you're working with, and the police can't do their jobs. Are the police being pulled aside, educated, knowing where to go, knowing that they're really not permitted? Like, how do you get them to work with you? And the law firm you're working with, you know, is it all lined up to take people down, like all of
Yes.
you all prepared?
Yes, that's strategically what we're planning right now. And it's more than one law firm. And I'm talking about international law firms that are waking up, and they're dealing with the child trafficking as well. I'm not naming names, I'm just working with some very good people.
What court can you bring this in? I mean, plainly the courts are just corrupted. Not only are they corrupted, but it's based on maritime law. I'm familiar with some of the concepts of it. It's not, if you like, not real law. There is no like common law court anywhere.
Uh-huh.
You convene one, but who is going to, see what I mean? The corruption is so deep and so long-lived and so potent and so powerful. They will take they'll take us all out if they have to defend themselves. This is the insanity that we're dealing with here. How can you, I mean, I'd love to know how you could do that, how you could overcome that.
Exactly what we're doing. We the people have to take back the power. We have to take back the control. We have constitutional rights, and we have to now, that's why I'm doing this, I've got everyone prepared in teams in all the different frauds to prepare the class actions. And the lawyers love it, because they're going to make, if we do RICO actions, They get 5 times as much. Look, we are not creditors. Sorry, we're not debtors, we're creditors. They've stolen quadrillions from us. We've got to take that back. And we've allowed it to get to this stage because we've not taken ownership.
Why a charity and not a trust?
Why a charity and not a trust? Because
They use trust to hide their assets and wealth and so forth.
well, can't we do the same?
Have you bothered with an affidavit as well?
I won't. I don't. I tell you why I don't want to. There's so many. You can go down a million rabbit holes with law, but why would we need to when we've got the powerful 1688 Declaration of Bill of Rights? Why would we need with the Constitution, and the Crown? They're in breach of all these documents. So by having the class action strategically, not just in Britain but across the world, we can escalate it all at the same time. We start to show that we're not the conspiracy theorists, we were right, because if we've got families that can prove that the Crown, the Rothschilds, which they can, and they're gathering the evidence right now, I've got ex-police officers as well that have worked with these targets, we can prove that. So it's not going to be 1 or 2 people that come onto the internet. That's how we take back control, because we then become a constitutional republic by doing that. But we have to gather the material across our country and across the world with make Earth great again, justice. It's ours. It's not theirs.
Is it not true that the judge has the last say there? Is that going to be a bit of a problem potentially?
Well, I think we've come to the point, there's enough people awake now. For instance, if we go on to, Bella, if you have a look at the newsflash page, and then I'll come on to the Royals, which is on here as well, with the evidence. If you scroll down, you'll see Justice Moore. Can you see that? Regarding let's have a look. Here, the round table on child protection. Now, this is all to do with the EU, and this is all to do with the child trafficking. This was one of my veterans that got me this material. What a coincidence. The judge I had at my final hearing, 4-week trial, ignored the evidence in the law, gave the judgment order predetermined to the journalist to destroy me, tried to. It hasn't worked, it won't work. And he's part of the same trafficking ring. So if you see, by mentioning this today, and this goes worldwide, how many other... I know there was another mother that had the same judge. She was so traumatised, she had a nervous breakdown, she couldn't go back and get her judgment order because she was too traumatised. But if we start as working together and actually exposing which are the criminal judges, which are the criminal law firms, which are the criminal accountants, it'll be a domino effect. No one's ever done this before, and it's time to do it now.
I'm sorry, I have another question. You said your judge is on that list. Has he been arrested for his crimes?
No, not yet.
So
He's Justice Moore, can you see? He was my judge at my final hearing. So, this is how we find out who's doing the wrongdoing. We start, because what will happen from that one judge, Justice Moore, you'll start seeing other mothers, fathers, where they've trafficked the children. People will come forward and saying, hold on a second, I had that same judge. And that's how we start listing them. And then we remove them with our constitution. And we become that's the only way to do this.
Yeah, can I say, just sadly, the trafficking of children is going on off the planet as well.
Exactly.
And that's another window we don't need to go into, but being aware of that, it still is big business off the planet.
Well, that was the conversation I had with Kerry when I did the show. This is black operations. That's why there's no auditing being done. Yeah.
And there's a lot of children that are brought into the breeding programs, and the children are just...
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, who knows what's going on? This, you know, these dolls where it's with one L. What's happening with that? You know, we dread to think. But that's why we have to stop it. So I'm keeping everyone busy right now, preparing judgment order number, judge, law firm, social worker. That's the way we have to make the change.
You used the word there earlier on called the honey trap, you know.
Yeah, I'll come back onto the honey traps. Yeah, so that's another way that they come in and take information. They hit a high net worth target, you know, drugs or whatever, and then find out the net worth. I mean, going back to her, what happened before my husband was murdered, she was the last person, and I will name her. Her name was Noelle Reno. She was working with the same lawyer who set up the power of attorney. So I've even got evidence of her setting up companies before and after my husband's murder. Where is she now? She's flying around in private jets, on yachts, and left me and my children destitute. But who do I blame? The judge. The judge has got blood on his hands because he ignored some of the most powerful evidence that I had from laptops proving that those assets belong to us, and that lawyer, who's now serving 12 years in prison, justice was not served, but he was sent to prison by the same people that stole my estate, where they're all fighting over the money. And this is why we have to put an end to because I've always said whoever controls the money controls the power. So that's why we have to take back ownership. And you know, I've always said money is not evil. Money is only evil in the wrong hands. And we can do such wonderful things. There's technology now, which I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm working with a military lawyer that's got technology that can accelerate all what we've discussed today with class actions, which we can reverse back on them. Where they've used AI, we can use it back to work in our advantage. Yeah. So I think that's all really positive. But I don't know if there's any questions anyone would like to ask.
Are you aware of the fact that the power of the jury has been completely, the judges or everyone's formed this assumption that the jury is controlled by the judge. But the truth is that the jury actually have the power to, even if the person is, well, the judge found guilty, the jury, it's the jury that can pass the sentence and make a decision.
That's right.
And this has been hidden. So it's been taken away and taken by judges who browbeat.
That's right.
Tell the jury what to do. So it's a question of getting the information out to as many people that they are sovereign.
Yes.
Not the courts.
Correct.
And that's where the fraud, the con has gone on.
Yes.
From earlier times.
Now we're going to come on to the royal family. Can we go on to the library page, please, Bella? Now, I've been working with an incredible whistleblower. She's in her 80s. She's a little bit eccentric, but what a great lady. She's recorded all the judges. She's got all the paperwork. And she had a whistleblower inside Lloyd's of London, which I believe it's the same as Lloyd's Bank. It's the royals behind it. Now, that whistleblower gave me a list, which is on there, Lloyd's of London. You'll see a list of 300 judges. Now, they never wanted we, the people, to get these books. They're called the Blue Books. So the judges are syndicated, which you'll see a list of. Lloyd's Gate, this was one of her whistleblower letters. But there's a list of 300 judges, and they're all syndicated through the Blue Books, with the majority of the Conservative Party, who are also syndicated with the majority of the royal family. And the reason I believe they're syndicated, there's a company that's used through the Ministry of Justice called Equitas. And who controls Equitas? Warren Buffett, one of the globalists. So I believe what they've been doing is trafficking our assets and children through the Ministry of Justice, siphoned through these syndications where they're securitizing us, which they do from birth. I've got another whistleblower I'm working with in 2018, just moving on a little bit, but all on the same subject. In late 2018, we lost in our country 250,000 cases. They went up in smoke in a fire regarding land registry on cases. So do you see, this is all interlinked with all of this, because if they burn our data, no auditing done on the accounts, the judges are syndicated, they're funneling the money through Equitas, the Ministry of Justice, which then all goes to SPVs, offshore, off-planet, black budget. This is why we're here today. This is what they're doing, but a lot of this evidence on this website, maybe you can show the judges, the list of judges. What's interesting with the judges, this is quite an old list, it's about 20, 30 years old. It's on the same page, you'll see list of syndicated judges. But what's interesting, they keep it in the family. So the judges, when they retire, it's either their brother, sister, aunt, uncle. So they keep the fraud going. That's how they do it.
Can I just ask you that Robert David Steele? What's that about?
Well, I worked with Sasha Stone.
Yeah.
We did the ITNJ.
Yeah.
And so I worked with Robert closely. And as he said, the child trafficking, that's the glue. That's how they were committing the crimes against humanity, whether it's high up in government, the Masons, high up. That's how they're controlling the system.
Do you know the cases go to court with the ITA?
Yes, my case is, it's all on this website. Actually, it's worth watching the videos because they're very educational, because the whistleblower chartered accountant that I work with, she's on there speaking about how they funnel the money and how all the accountancy firms are all interlinked. Because all this money, what we're speaking about today, is all funneled back through to BlackRock and Vanguard. And you know, as you quite rightly said, black budget goes off planet too. It's the video link page. If you can go on to that, Bella, there's a video link page within the website. So the reason I put this together, it took me a year with and it's 19 years of my work. It educates people on the Constitution with our solutions, but also on how the crimes are being committed. So there's a video link page, if you can go on to that, Bella. And there's some of the great whistleblowers that I've worked with, including, I think, Kerry's worked with him, Dean Henderson. I don't agree with Dean on the great Donald Trump, because I think Donald Trump, what he's doing for humanity is phenomenal. But on the other points, he's on point with the royals. Yeah.
So it's Make America Great Again website.
Yes, and you can see there's all the videos I did with Sasha Stone, with Robert David Steele. Anthony Stansfield, he's the crime commissioner that I'm working with, who's an ex-Green Beret, and he's working, what a great man. He's retired, he's nearly in his 80s, and he's still working literally day and night like me and the others, helping everyone across the country, because the financial crimes, I've always said, are very important, because if we can take back control of our money they've stolen, we can really create heaven on earth. Shall I be?
Almost come to an end.
Well, look, I think as long as it's a good financial system, and if the white hats are bringing in a new system, great. But it's got to work for us. You know, we've got to end the slavery. We should all be having better lives. You know, we don't need their pharmaceutical industry. We need natural health, and there's all the remedies. There's all the, there's all this free energy. Everything's there for us. So We've now got, but I do think if we start here with the class actions and we take back control of our countries and our courts and our governments, and we have it's a beautiful way to live, isn't it? A clean new start. And I don't think money's a bad thing in our hands, not in theirs.
Why was your husband murdered?
To steal the estate. To steal the estate. And he's only one of many.
Can I ask you, do you think petitions work?
Well, this is, as Kerry said, this is more than a petition, because what you're doing here, you're putting the data on there of what happened to you. You're naming the individuals, and then you're putting the bullet points in whether your court documents are fraudulent. You see, once we show that all our court documents are fraudulent and they're just asset stripping us of everything we own, we remove them. And I've got two of the greatest men that I've worked with for nearly 10 years that have 5 exhibits, 3 of them being the ones I've discussed this evening, that we can actually, once we get the class actions and show how systemic it is and that we have to take back control. They've got the 5 documents where we can take back control of our governments and our courts. Keep it simple. You see, you could go to all the different, there's so many different areas in the law, but why do we need to when we've got the 1688, which they can't repeal? It removes them. That's why they don't like it. And I've got the 2 of the greatest men that can do that very simply. But we've got to do the other actions first.
So I was going to just make a suggestion, really. So I've got a thing about Keir Starmer at the moment.
So have I. So have I.
Into North Korea, Soviet Union. He's the biggest threat to freedom of speech and democracy. But he might have a potential downfall. Mm-hmm. On GB News, I think it was a barrister who basically said that under the so-called riots, Keir Starmer wanted enhanced police powers. Mm-hmm. He went to the House of Lords. They said no and they rejected it, but he did it anyway. Mm-hmm. Apparently, technically, that is illegal and possibly treason. Could your lawyers look into it, please?
100% it's high treason.
It is.
And I've said that to many judges when I've seen them, what they've done to families in the courts. Yeah.
Still the death penalty for treason in this country, isn't it?
Absolutely. You need to speak to my 2 amazing constitutional guys. I tell you, they'll empower you. And that's all on this website, by the way. John Bingley's website is on this Make Earth Great Again. It's worth reading through. The man he worked with Lord James of Blackheath, done some incredible work, and still is.
What makes you think, though, that, I mean, you've said how long you've been at this, what makes you think that the legal system will not tie it all up in years of legislation and just, again, it just dies a death?
I tell you why, because I'm working with certain law firms now with great technology, and there's a gentleman behind you as well that I'm going to have a great meeting with his firm. And I believe there's enough good firms now that will come forward because they don't want to lose their business. And the light is shone on the bad guys. So a lot of the bad guys are going to come into the side of greater good. They have no option. He didn't use the Constitution or the 1688 Declaration. That's these documents I'm speaking about. They can't repeal them. They can't move. Nobody. You see, that's why he didn't. There's too many people doing too many different things, and it becomes confusing. If we all stick to this, it will accelerate this with the class actions. Have they tried to? What do you think? Quite a few. Yeah. Yeah. God Almighty. Greatest protection in the world. And you know, I believe we're in a position now, it might be the most turbulent, but my God, it's the most exciting time.
Yeah, do you know about, there's a character called Robert Warwick who's got into all this, and he says that the only future is sovereign communities going back to the Constitution, and getting back to this jury thing.
Well, I think the jury thing could actually work very well with class actions and working with heavyweight law firms where we remove the baddies.
Are you going to, I mean, I don't know how, I mean, obviously, when you go into court, obviously, the jury system, how that's structured and organised, but somehow that knowledge that really the jury has more power in many ways than the judge. But that's all been common.
Yeah, they've twisted that, haven't they? Yes.
Making people think, browbeaten by the judge.
Yeah.
So that's what's got to, if that knowledge was got out to people,
Yeah.
en masse, then that would change the whole equation.
I'm working with some great people, with not only with some amazing software on to accelerate the cases, but also with social media to move all this forwards with the Make Earth Great Again Justice, with this website interlinked to educate people. But once these class actions, which people are preparing right across our country now, there's no wriggle room, because it's too many people with all those frauds with exactly the same thing. So they can't say it's one or two. That's how. That's. Sorry? Yes, I know Sandy very well. But to be honest with you, those courts and that parliament doesn't belong to them. That belongs to us. So we've got to, you know, you can keep doing all these different things across the country. The ownership is with us, not with them. We've got to take back control of everything.
Are you sort of aware of the sort of 5G actions we did in the High Court, and we worked with Michael Mansfield? And,
yes.
You know, it was just all, you know, the judge was corrupt, and
yeah.
Just a nightmare.
But that's why the class actions are important, you see, for that reason. If we've got the class actions, there's nowhere for them to go. Too many people with too much evidence.
Well, this is also something that can be done and has been suggested for the Fauci COVID, you know, prosecution.
Yes.
That haven't happened yet, obviously, but that should happen under class action.
Agreed, Kerry.
And, you know, so the class action is actually a very good way.
Powerful.
To you know, to take these people to task. I just don't know how far you're going to get with it. I mean, can you give us a status report? What's, you know, where exactly are you with this? Have you gotten pushback? You say you win these, I forget what you call them.
All my court orders, I've won those. So I've just got to enforce it.
Right.
So but working now with the people I'm working with, I'm very confident that I'll be able to enforce it.
What's the next thing that's on the list?
Well, the next thing is the mega charity, so we can then do that, which I've already got people worldwide that will fund that to bring justice back. Because without a justice system, we have anarchy without a police force. So
How is a charity going to bring justice back?
because I've already got people to fund it, so they'll fund the class actions with the right lawyers and with the right software to show the court documents are fraudulent, the children are being trafficked, the assets are being taken through family courts, insolvency courts.
One of these cases before a judge, a
What?
real judge, I mean one that isn't corrupt. How do you get the case before them? I mean, I know British, you know, situation
Yes.
is different than American. So, but how do you bring a case? Is it the barrister that brings the case?
Well, I'm working with some very good King's Counsel that don't lose. That don't lose. They've won their cases.
But who brings do you understand the question? Who brings the case?
Well, the King's Counsel will bring the case against the individuals, whether it's an individual case or a class action, to the judge. But if there's lots of social media, lots of mainstream media, because now the mainstream media are picking their ears up to and eyes to what's going on. And you use both. We've got good people now in Parliament. As the great Robert David Still always said, 90% of the people are good people trapped in a bad system. So if we start implementing all these different things all at the same time and move fast with good software, social media, mainstream media a little bit, which I'm working with at the moment.
I understand the problem with the Michael, but this went wrong there, was that your case has to be judged to have merit.
Yes.
And that's the problem. The problem is that's where the corruption comes in.
Well, Michael never had, no offence, the people I've got in my background. The people I've got working behind the scenes are very powerful.
But what stops the judge from throwing it out and saying, there's something...
He won't with what I'm preparing at the moment, the judges won't have any choice. Like we've got Justice More on this website. And by the way, it's worth watching John Bingley's presentation, The Sovereign of Parliament and the Absolute Power of the Rule of Law. That's worth watching. That will empower you. But yeah, this is all strategic. You can't just walk into the courts. You've got to do all what I've just discussed and attack them with all the class actions, social media, show what they're doing to our children, to the people, to families, all at the same time, where they don't know where to go because they won't have any. And then they'll have to be removed. The ones that are committing the crimes like Justice More and many others will have to be removed. And we'll have to retrain our judges to be constitutional judges. Hand back on Bible. They need to be trained, the racketeering. Their bank accounts need to be audited. Let's do an independent audit. I'm speaking to people about that at the moment. If the auditing is done independently, it's game over. Because that money's our money, it's not theirs.
Well, what's the time frame?
Well, it's taken me, to be frank, it's took me nearly 4 months to set up this charity because they keep coming back with more and more questions. The trustees, one is Anthony Stansfield, who was a previous crime commissioner, my ex-Ministry of Defence police officer who I've worked with for years, and myself. So it's good people who will only do the right thing, but even the documents yesterday, we signed them and they hacked the phone and took the signed documents off. But, it's all part of it. I mean, they've been hacking me and doing this to me and many others, particularly on the financial crimes. I think where we are now, they've got nowhere to go.
The next 18 months, interesting period.
I think shorter. I mean, I'm very confident with some of the people I'm working with now. I'm very excited, actually, because there are some very, very good lawyers.
Okay, but, it's all very good for you to have, good confidence in these people, but do you have any lawyers that are speaking to the press?
They will do within the next few months, yeah. I've already got, I've got one of the lawyers who they have tried to assassinate a few times, but he's working on some very good actions with me which are going to make major changes for all of us, including social media, but I can't say any more than that at this stage. In a positive way.
Heads up about the charity, that's one of the delaying games. It took us 18 months and then they said no. So,
Well, we're all having this conversation today. We all want to make Earth great again with justice, don't we? So if they refuse the charity, I think there's going to be a bit of a... the people are not going to want that. We all want justice. We want a system that works for we the people.
I think it's great what you're doing. It's brilliant.
Well, I'm trying my hardest and I'm very confident.
Well, I would suggest what you need is publicity.
Yes.
You need to not go out as a speaker without a lawyer at your side who can then answer legal questions that people have.
Yes.
You don't have to give away your strategy necessarily.
Exactly.
The lawyer will know how to deal with the press.
Yes, and that's what I'll do, Kerry. That's what's going to happen moving forwards.
Are you aware of this policeman, Gary? I can't remember his name.
Gary Waterman.
Yes.
Well, I said to Gary a few weeks ago, you know, he's said that Trump and Nigel Farage, and they're all linked to his companies and everyone's companies. I said, look, Gary, we've all been securitized since birth. We're living in one big Ponzi scheme. We're all connected to those big mother companies at the top because they've securitized us. I believe Trump is a great man. I believe Nigel Farage is a great man. They believe in our constitutional rights, hand on Bible, God's law. And so I said, you've got to be careful sometimes. You can accuse the wrong people. And it's that, I think that can be a little bit dangerous. I did say that to Gary. And you know, we're all linked to these same companies. Let's be frank. They've enslaved us to this matrix.
What can I do to contribute to what you're doing, which then has ramifications for all of us? And how does what you're doing affect everyone else? Will it not just, how will it redistribute that wealth back to the common, to all of us?
Well, because if we have the money back in the hands of the people, we have, like what Trump did for 4 years, he had a great economy, no wars. If we have lower taxes and we have, but people have got to work. I don't believe that everyone should have everything for free. I work probably 18, 19 hours a day. I've always been a hard worker. I'm not frightened of hard work. I think I think we do still have to work, but I think once the money's in the right hands, it's going to change the system where it works for us and rather than them. Well, what I would like to do, just thinking out loud here, as this all moves forwards, once this, and this will get funded, this charity, that I promise you, they'll have no option. What we could do is we can then do an independent audit on the auditors. I think that is really, really important because then that brings the money back to the people so that they can have prosperity and set up businesses and have their own cash again.
It's not so much about money as it is about the natural inherent wealth of the planet being...
Yes, but if we had money that was in our hands, we can then have we can all have businesses. You can go and do natural remedies because you would have money is only an energy transfer, but in the right hands, we can do good things with it. It's not a bad thing. So if you had money, if we did auditing on the auditors, I'm sure everyone then would have a lot more prosperity where they could go and do something in life they wanted to do to prosper.
So at present there's nothing that I can sign to contribute to...
Well, not at the moment, I tell you why, because until Mega Justice is up and running, and we've already got great people that are going to fund it, and we've made that clear to the charity. There's already a lot of interest worldwide to bring back a justice system that works for we the people. So once that's the first stage, and because it's a lot of work for me to prepare class actions, once all that comes in, that's going to change the prosperity, because then we start asset stripping the criminals that have asset stripped us. But I can't do any more than that at this stage. It's a lot of work.
Okay, I think that rather than looking in the future, that we really have to be nuts and bolts at this point.
Yes.
You're going to win the cases, and the press is going to follow you and put it out honestly, and then the people are going to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And
Would you like the mic?
Hit the streets or whatever they're going to do. In other words, we're really talking about changing a system. So she's going through a certain channel using very highly placed barristers, lawyers, if you don't even call them lawyers, I think. But anyway, in other words, I think that if you have something specific along the lines of nuts and bolts actions that she might not be thinking about, is there an email address that they can write to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can write to me at Michelle, MICHELLE7, as in the digit, young, @gmail.com, and that's YOUNG. We all have to work together. The power is with us.
Uh-huh.
What can we do? Because it comes back to where you started. That becoming
Okay, you know, again, I'm not familiar with the system. I don't know why everyone isn't out putting their cases through the courts, but I think they reach a roadblock that maybe Michelle, in her situation, being quite unique and having already got the press out, you know, sort of aware of her, might be able to move some of those roadblocks out of the way so other cases can come through. It has to be some kind of grandstanding, as you can appreciate, that you need one case that is won. So I, you know, that's just a thought. All right. Again, please do write to her with your suggestions, anything you want to, you know, talk about or whatever. She's pretty open, as you can see. So thank you for being at the conference. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.